Alrighty, welcome to episode 199 of Tokwa's Ask Us Anything. As usual, it's been a pretty busy news week. Tesla has introduced a Lease My Tesla offering in conjunction with the financing company Driver. Tesla Australia claims this will simplify acquiring Teslas via a novated lease with reduced costs and enhanced customer experience. And that was this week's news. Indeed it was, and actually there was a few other bits of news. Notably, Synergy had announced, or has announced, the completion of its first big battery, or should I say Collie big battery, so that's very cool. Alrighty, if there is anyone who is new and you're comfortable in doing so, please unmute and say hello. Or perhaps a little bit later in the program. Alrighty, who wants to kick us off on this champagne Ask Us Anything?
Is there anything planned for episode 200? You just said number 199.
I know, it'd probably be easy if I just go, the next episode's 199.1 and then 199.2. Yeah, I know.
And then it's 100, then it's 201. Just jump over.
Yeah, that's right. We could reserve the 200 for when Tesla shares hit $420.69 per share.
Yeah, or
although that would actually be episode. That would probably be a bit more than 2/3 into episode 420. But my God, that's a long way away. Yeah, no. The correct answer is, since we're on a budget of zero and I'm lazy, no, there's not going to be a special episode next week unless I can think of something. Yeah, I mean, look, if Tesla gets $400, it'll be a special episode, but let's not get into share price this early. Alrighty, has anyone got any? But yeah, thanks nonetheless, Steve. Has anyone got any other questions or comments?
What's the current travelling north charging issues at the moment?
I'm going to find out tomorrow.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But
so incidentally, Main Roads has closed the road towards Jurien Bay, north of Lancelin. So actually, to get to Geraldton, oops, sorry, let me just fix that bit up. So to get Geraldton, I've got to go basically charge up at Lancelin and then just backtrack slightly south, go across to the Brand Highway, sorry, up to Geraldton, or possibly Northampton. And yeah, as far as charging goes, I know that the Billabong, so it's 400 it's either 400 on the nose or it's 425 kilometres to Carnarvon from Northampton. And that's fine, you can make it, but one disadvantage is you've got to basically fully charge in order to do that, and then just use your skills to glide down to have not very much left when you get to Carnarvon. Because Billabong Homestead, the WAV network, which was actually installed, God, I went past there about 3 laps ago, so it's been a while, and the tritium was there, but it hasn't yet been commissioned, or it's not enabled, and all there is a Type 2. And then at Overlander Roadhouse, which is 40 k's north, 40 or 80, one or the other, that is notoriously unreliable, and you just never know what you're going to get. So what I'll have to do, and I suggest anyone else does this as well, is effectively fully charge at Northampton, so that if need be, you can just slow down and make it all the way to Carnarvon, or because you just don't know what you're going to get at Overlander, unfortunately. The tritium may or may not work okay, or it might work in fits and farts. In my experience, what happens is you've got to watch it like a hawk, because it'll just spontaneously stop charging, and won't really tell you. And even the card kind of doesn't really tell you either. The charging kind of just stops, but everything's still mated together. In other words, the energy flow stops, but the charging session kind of doesn't end, except there's no more energy no more energy being delivered to your car.
What
So,
about the destination charger at the back of Billabong Roadhouse? Is that still
oh, sorry,
operational?
yes, but it's the cable on the 5 or 6 year old destination charger is on its last legs because on those Generation 2 wall connectors, Tesla used a cheap metal horseshoe to a saddle to hold the cable into the unit. And what happens really easily is that becomes undone, and just through normal use, as you pull on the cable, and the problem is, not everyone parks where they should because there's like a tree nearby and they want to be away from the tree or whatever. They'll sort of pull a bit harder on the cable. And if you look at it, the actual outer sheath part is outside, and you've got a yellow wire. It's either yellow or orange. And if you lose either one of those wires, it will stop working. And it's a very thin wire. So it's kind of on its last legs ish. So that's sort of a bit iffy. The Type 2 at Billabong has worked for me in the past. So I should say probably, but I'm going to probably have to say might work in the future. Unfortunately, those Jet Charge manufactured charge mates have got a reputation for deciding not to work at their own whim, sadly. So yeah, that's a very long answer. Oh, one bit of good news is though I should be able to use the Fortescue River Roadhouse Horizon powered WAV network tritium charger, which is about 100 k's out of Karratha. So that's a bit of good news that I can do that on Friday on the way to Port Hedland.
Between Nanatara and Karratha.
Yes. Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Although, see, if I left tomorrow at 3 a.m., which I usually do, then I'd get to Nyanyatara at 6, but I might sleep in until 4 and get there at 7. Uh, and then, I'll be full. I can basically just charge up on the DC charger, the 50 kilowatt tritium, which works really well, and really just get to 90% and job done. And that'll do that in an hour and hour and 10 minutes, hour and 15 minutes ish, maybe hour 20, and then just go to bed, wake up in the morning, and just tootle off via Fortescue River Roadhouse, then Karratha, then Wim Creek. And then I expect that the Port Hedland charger will be available but not operational because I don't think it's on ChargeFox yet. And if it's not on ChargeFox tomorrow for the opening of the Spoil Bank Marina, which was the whole reason why the charger couldn't be used for the last 6 months, I'll probably have to tweet out something like I drove 1,800 kilometres to get a charge and all I got was a photo, which is entirely plausible.
It's,
So,
If you've ever done that before.
yeah,
interesting
well,
news considering the Synergy announcement earlier on the 4th saying they've completed their EV network.
yes, they have. So Northam was their last problem
Yeah.
child. So yes, they indeed have completed their section of the WAV network, and we have it from a source outside of Synergy. Sorry, Horizon Power. That it's intended for the WAV network to be declared complete prior to the next election. And I think you got to do that before you go into caretaker mode. So that's, I think, early January.
But
So
as we've talked about, Harold, difference between commissioned and operational.
absolutely. And commissioned and actually finished, because we already know that John Edwards has installed a temporary, inverted commas, WAV network diesel generator and 60 kilowatt DC charger that is instead of the planned solar installation with diesel backup,
That's
which will be
Carguna, right?
installed at Carguna. Yes, yeah, indeed. And that's, and there's well, no one knows when the actual proper one will be installed. Now, since we're actually, oh well, since we're on this, and actually, and Chuck's in the room, and I'm glad he is, because I'm going to engage rant mode. So to do that, I've just got to get an email up. Actually, I won't get the email up, but we have written confirmation. Is this okay, James?
Yeah, I guess confidential but just don't mention the source.
Yes, we have a very reliable source that alleges that the NRMA has exclusive arrangements with certain locations, which means that other operators cannot co-install fast DC charging infrastructure at those locations due to there being an exclusive arrangement with various locations in outback
in South Australia.
In South Australia.
Yeah.
Enabled by taxpayer money.
Precisely, to the tune of approximately $38 million. And that enables the NRM, so that now seems to have enabled the NRMA to get out there first, tie up the site, and excuse my language, but install shitty infrastructure. Because there is no doubt that the Earl Dunda DC location is shitty, and the Nullarbor one continues to be shitty, in spite of James Maitland in this room holding the hands of the tech staff, the two technicians that were working on that they were servicing the Nullarbor Roadhouse charger, and in spite of him spending some extra of his time and thankfully literally demonstrating the exact issues that were going on that they observed and were shocked at, the NRMA now, it seems, has locked up a few sites to their exclusive use, and yet there's no sort of requirement by the federal government or any other instrumentality to compel the NRMA with substantial taxpayer money to actually install something that works properly. So not only can someone else not come in and install something, the NRMA could, if it wished, just continue to have shitty infrastructure that never really works properly, or might work on a good day and maybe not on a bad day, and then no one else can come in with a superior or any other solution, which is just outrageous. And I really hope that this comes to the knowledge of Chris Bowen, who I'm sure is blissfully unaware, and whether or not he could care less is probably something I would love to ask him. I don't recall on Tokwa's around Australia trips in an EV seeing a certain C. Bowen featuring in that list, so I don't know that Chris has got much experience in doing long-term road trips.
He's got a Mon 3.
I think he does, yeah.
Then he just needs to drive across the Nullarbor and experience firsthand.
Precisely, because there's no point sipping on a decaf skinny soy chai latte between Sydney and Melbourne, or possibly Canberra and Sydney, because, by the way, you don't actually need a charge between Canberra and Sydney just quietly, or if you do, it's like 10 minutes at the Exeter supercharger. tops. Yeah, so the likes of Chris Bowen don't know what it means to do a proper road trip, and don't understand what it means to get to a charger and play fast DC charger lotto, and with the help of taxpayer funds. But anyway,
I'll just put the plug share for today in. Looks like 3 people were unlucky or today in the last few days at Nullarbor. 3 hours,
yes.
45 minutes to charge.
So the story continues. So basically, if you're lucky, you might actually get a full charge at 70 odd kilowatts on your first or second go. So I think Rob Dean actually, he succeeded, but his first attempt, he unfortunately used the left-hand charger, which I think's Nullarbor number 1, and that's the one that I've observed to be very wavery, and that's exactly what happened to him. It sort of like flitted up and down to power levels between 22 kilowatts up to 75, and then back down and whatever. But then he plugged on the same charger back straight into it, and it then worked, and he got all the way, to 90% with full rate. But there are others like myself where, particularly if someone has been there before and the battery isn't full from solar power, if you're in that situation, at best you'll get about 10 kilowatts, which is half of the power that you can get from the crowd-funded Delta charger on the other side of the roadhouse.
And Harold, it's nothing to do with the battery as well. When I was there, the technician was surprised because the battery was at 85%.
Yes.
So it was as you say, it's lottery. Don't try and plan to get there later in the day for sunshine. It is absolutely lotto. The battery was showing 85% charge, and that's when the generator kicked in for no apparent reason, no call from the hybrid unit, kicked on, shut the whole site down.
Yes, and basically, so the whole thing, it's right, and it can vary from it goes black. That unit, the tritiums go black. The generator starts, shuts off after about 30 seconds, while the tritiums are booting up. But of course, unfortunately, the tritiums haven't had enough time to actually boot up enough for you to start drawing power. Now, if you started drawing power, the generator might have stayed on because the system might have thought that there's a reasonable load and therefore it should stay on. But as we speak today, or whenever that last plug share post was, when was that, James? A day or two
27th
ago? 27th
is in the chat. 27th today.
Today. So as of today, the Nullarbor Roadhouse site is no better than it was since it was installed. In fact, it's probably a bit worse than when it was installed. So I think it was originally installed, it might have worked okay, or at least maybe no one noticed. And that's the thing.
So what's worse than the charger at all?
Yeah, well, it is worse because you could, for example, plan. So for me, I have, like, for my little trip tomorrow, I've booked accommodation in Nanyatara because I want to take it easy. I could have gotten to Karratha, but I only need to get to Port Hedland the next day. So basically, I've booked Nanyatara. Now, if you imagine that, say, the Carnarvon site was dead, Fast DC was dead, then I would be getting to Nanyatara very, very late. Like, rather than 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening, it'd be more like midnight. And that really changes your day. So for want of one charging location working, it can just mess up the rest of your road trip, unfortunately.
So one thing that's worse than no charger at all is a charger that's completely unreliable. But what's worse than a charger that's completely unreliable, and that's a charger that's completely unreliable and geofenced, and a geofenced monopoly, effectively, where no one else can come in and offer a more reliable solution.
Exactly. I'll get to you in a sec, Shane. Yeah, precisely, Pete, because if I won lotto and said, "Oh, bugger it, I'm gonna buy one of John's one of John's generators and just chuck a 60 kilowatt charger next to the NRMA, I presume I would be barred, or sorry, the Nullarbor Roadhouse would be barred from allowing me to do that contractually.
With taxpayer money.
Yeah, and I could be doing that with my own money and offering to do this to help out the people so they don't get stranded or inconvenienced at the Nullarbor Roadhouse because of the shitty NRMA charger. And it appears NRMA may have stitched up the Roadhouse with an exclusive arrangement. So I probably couldn't even help if I wanted to.
It's just unbelievable. We thought the worst thing you could get was a very bad, unreliable charger, but there's another level.
Well, it's
There's
akin.
there's another level on top of that. There's another level on top of
Go,
that.
Shane.
Yeah, there's another level on top of that. We spent 45 minutes on hold to the support people for that charger, to be told that basically we can't, we will not do anything. We're not going to send anybody tomorrow. We're not going to send anybody today. We might maybe ring you in 2 days' time. It's flat out dangerous.
It is, and the real issue is if you're in certain locations and in certain circumstances, not being able to charge properly at a location could, in certain unlucky circumstances, cause a motorist to make a poor decision, such as, well, I can't make it, so maybe I'll go and walk for help or something. I mean, Nullarbor Roadhouse isn't quite that situation, but there are other locations which may or may not be exclusively tied up. Or in any case, even if they're not exclusively tied up, if you look online at a status of something and it says it's working, and you get there and it's not, that can potentially become dangerous, particularly in the outback where you've got poor communications and you can have extremes of heat. And, you know, people don't realise it. I don't know what it is, but if you could walk 2 or 3 hours in the broad daylight, broad sunlight, and you could probably get yourself into heat stroke territory pretty quickly without realising it. And if you're unlucky and the time when you're doing it, there's not a lot of traffic on the road, bad things could happen. And in any case, do we as EV owners deserve to be treated like second class, third class and fourth class citizens, whereby we're at the whims of a nation, what is now a nationwide business, being the NRMA? They used to be a strictly state-based business, but now through their acquisition of various insurance companies, now intend on giving themselves a national presence. So really the charges are basically billboards professing how good they are, and yet they're not delivering. And they're exclusively not delivering. Or should I say they're not delivering in a place where they have exclusive access. Anyway, rant over. Has anyone else got any questions or comments, or particularly anyone new? Any questions about your? Oh, sorry, Paul. I
Yeah,
just saw you.
Chuck should have joined in too on that one.
I've had my hand up for a while. I'll just
Oh, sorry,
quickly
Paul. Yeah, go on.
It's okay. I just think it's unacceptable, all this sort of stuff, that I think we should make a list and just hammer the shit out of all the ministers, state, federal, all that sort of stuff. Just use our club, our membership. We've got enough people, and put it out to Ava and the other guys and just go, enough's enough. Because I think we're in an echo chamber and we'll just yell at it, we'll just get caught up with charging, and it's the sort of thing of, I'm fighting it on a different front, on multiple things. And I think, if we just use our guys and girls, just smash the shit out of them in a nice way, polite way. But I think if they hear even 20 people, they will actually do something, that sort of stuff. But if they hear hundreds of people, then they definitely will do something about it, because they like the good publicity, and we've got the elections coming up.
That's right.
on
We've got
both
the state
both
election on
state
the
and
6th of March. I think
yep,
it's the
and
6th, that's
federal.
a Saturday. And the
Yep,
federal is probably a month or two after that.
yep. Perfect
So
time.
it is perfect timing,
Yep.
and it's just not good enough.
No,
You know,
no.
it's and the thing I know Rob's actually come to this view too. EVs have gone beyond, like, all governments at every level are actively encouraging the uptake of EVs. And
Yep.
that's great. That's laudable. It should be done. But with that comes another responsibility to not effectively semi-con people into buying something that they won't be able to use effectively for all the road trips that they might want to undertake. So you can't sort of encourage someone to do something and then sort of go, oh yeah, but you can't really use it for this and that and whatever. But we told you they're awesome and we encourage you to buy them, but we can't be bothered doing anything about the infrastructure that is essential. It's a little bit like saying, go and buy a car and we can't be bothered building a road for you to drive on,
Yep.
you know.
Or a hydrogen car, or getting some hydrogen to put into it.
Oh, don't start.
Thankfully, there are no hydrogen cars for sale in Australia.
Yeah.
There are 10, or is it less, that are on lease, strictly on lease. Oh man. Um,
Where you're at with that is exactly what I said in the interview we did with the ABC when we got back after our lap. One of the questions was, did you ever have to wait for a charge? And the answer was yes, once, because some idiot was charging from 99% to 100% on a fast DC charger in the middle of Sydney. So he had absolutely no idea what he was doing. But that was beside the point. And the follow-up question was, yes, but as more people get EVs and start driving EVs, that's obviously going to become an issue. And my response to that was, well, people just won't stand for it because they just won't. So what Paul's saying is exactly right. We need to bang the drum and not be in our little echo chamber amongst ourselves, whinging and moaning. We need to let the people, the powers that be, know. Somehow we need to do that without discouraging EV ownership. That's probably the trick.
well, yeah, I mean, you can do that by directly contacting the relevant ministers and politicians because you know you could tweet out, which is shouting to the world sort of thing, saying it's just not good enough. Although, I mean, look, you know, for example, the Nullarbor Roadhouse charger is public infrastructure. It's no secret that it's not working properly. So
Yeah.
I don't really see that, like, for example, to highlight that that is not working properly, contrary to the way the federal government spruiked the national highway, because it was described as a national highway comprising 117 chargers nationwide as a part of a backbone for EV infrastructure. It's probably, I wouldn't say that as anti-EV to simply say, yes, that's awesome,
Right.
but it's not being delivered properly and it needs to be fixed.
Doesn't do what it says on the tin. And there's also
Exactly.
there's also a great big gap between, well,
Everywhere.
there's a few big gaps across there. And
Oh,
then
yes.
there's
Yep.
another big gap across the north as well. So
Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. I mean, we get Timber Creek, Victoria River Roadhouse, that's between Kununurra and Katherine. There's a gap where there's very little to no charging and no DC charging. You've got down the guts, south of Mataranka, you've got nothing until you get to Three Ways, and that's about 500 and something Ks. And then between
near
Three
enough
Ways
600.
and
Yep.
Alice Springs, you've got nothing that's proper infrastructure, or not proper. Yes, you have a 30 kilowatt privately funded charger at Barrow Creek, but again, that sort of infrastructure doesn't count because it's privately funded. It's there at the whim or at the good grace of the local owner that's allowing this to happen. And also people like John Edwards. So there's Hunter Murray, who really is the Northern Territory equivalent of John Edwards, who is pretty much single-handedly providing charging infrastructure at his own expense, and at great expense because he physically goes and installs it and maintains it and all that sort of stuff. So, if it wasn't for the privateers in Western Australia and the Northern Territory, there's huge swathes of the country that would have nothing and still have nothing. So, yeah, and you've got Barclay Homestead and Camberwell, and the Queensland government, just a recent, well, they've actually changed government. There's been a change of government. They've basically said that they're not interested in Camberwell. They just don't. It's not that they have no intention of installing any charging infrastructure whatsoever. So you've got basically a private business, being the RACQ mechanic, that allows people to charge on his private 32 amp three-phase socket in Camberwell. And without that, you can't make it to Three Ways or Tennant Creek. Anyway, all right, we'll try and get off the charging rant.
Not Tennant Creek, Mount Isa. Camberwell's between Barclay
Sorry, you
and
can't
Mount
get
Isa.
between Mount Isa. So without the Camberwell private thing, you can't get between Mount Isa and, well, let's call it Three Ways Roadhouse, or Three Ways, 20 k's north of Tennant Creek. You just can't make it unless you drive. No, you just can't make it. Or you could do what I had to do, which was push to get to Barclay Homestead in the evening so that I could charge on 15 amps overnight and get something. But again, that's treating an EV road tripper as a fourth class citizen. Because even if you had a horse, you could still feed your horse on the pastures as you ride by. So a horse has got better charging infrastructure than an EV. Anyway, alrighty, have we got any non-charging related, at least non-charger related questions or comments?
Well, a completely different topic altogether.
Yes.
On
please.
playing around with the idea of buying MSNBC.
Oh God, no. Please don't.
Yeah, I mean, what's weird is for someone who professes or is a portent of the absolute doom of all conventional media, such as television, newspapers, etc., why then would you then buy MSNBC as a broadcaster? I don't get it.
I don't get it either, but I've learned over the last decade or more that you just always give the man the benefit of the doubt because he'll prove you wrong. So, and that's held me in good stead. That's one of the reasons why I haven't sold my shares many times when I wanted to, and I'm glad I didn't, because I just gave him the benefit of the doubt. So, look, whether he's just trolling or whether he's serious or whether he wants to completely revamp it, similar to what he did with Twitter, who knows? I mean, there has been plans for XTV, which would be a completely different thing, but maybe the two could be complementary somehow.
It's only cheap too. It's only $1 billion or something like that, I think,
I
market
think it's
cap.
less than that.
You compare relatively. So when he bought Twitter for $44 billion, he was worth, I can't remember, but it was somewhere around $200 billion. He's worth $350 billion now, and the price tag supposedly is only $1 billion. So it'd be, you know, $1 billion is still a lot of money even for him, but you know, it wouldn't be hard. Let's put it that way.
Oh, look, $1 billion. He just gets what's the name, margin loan on his shares or whatever. So no, that's pocket change. Plus, he'll get a few of his mates together. I mean, Larry Ellison would probably spot him $1 billion anyway. So you
Couch,
know,
can't the couch change?
yeah, that's
I'll have
right.
some.
That's right. I mean, look, you just use your special fountain pen on your checkbook, and you know they still have checkbooks in America, so it'll be all right. Which I mean that obviously is a mystery as to whether Elon Musk will buy NBC. Another mystery is
MSNBS.
Yeah.
yes. Another mystery is I wonder what all these are.
Oh,
Oh yeah, baby.
So it's pretty clear that this and this and this and this and this
they look like Ys, don't
and
they?
that they're all Ys, and that looks more like
Roadster?
an S.
Mm.
I don't know if it's a. Oh, it could be a
But
Roadster.
what about the
It could be.
one just to the right of that one? That one looks quite interesting too. The one with the wheels exposed, partly exposed.
Mm. Do you
They
think
look a
that's a
bit-
bigger Model Y or something?
The
So
only
like a
thing that might
3-row.
the thing that might confuse it is this cover isn't as low as the others, so
Mm.
it kind of probably distorts. I reckon if we could somehow Photoshop the cover a bit lower, because looks kind of bluish, or well, it's really hard to tell the color. But
Mm.
I think, Harold, you can see that the pocket for the rear view right-hand mirror is sitting above. It's not
Yes.
sitting over it. So yeah, you're right. This side is actually risen up.
yes,
If it were
yes.
pulled down to match
Mhm.
where the physical right rear mirror is, it would be fine.
So
I think.
look, you've got a Harry High Pants here as well. See, so this is a similar effect. So
Yeah.
I think clearly in fact, that makes it even look more. That looks like Midnight Silver, potentially. So I think clearly all of these cars, except for the middle one, are all the same, and it literally they must be Junipers because there's literally no other reason to hide them. And
Yeah.
this is maybe this is just maybe this is another version of the Model 3, but then why would you cover it up?
Might be the 2.5.
Yeah.
The cutback version.
Yeah, that could be interesting. So this is incidentally this is at Fremont. This drone photo was taken at no, sorry. Was it Fremont or was it Texas?
I think it was Fremont.
Or was it Fremont? Maybe Fremont.
It was
Fremont
no,
Yeah, who took
yeah.
who took
Fremont
the
factory
shot?
test track.
no,
Yeah.
It is too because you've got all the bumps and stuff. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
No, that's very much the test track. So, and I mean, there's a Model 3 and there's a standard Model Y. So if we flipped this around and put it there, yeah, it's hard to tell. But
Yeah.
it's
We'll find
cer-
out in a few weeks or months or something.
Well, my guess is that the Australian Juniper order book will be open before Christmas.
before Christmas.
Yes,
Or before.
I think before, because I think they're going to have deliveries starting next quarter, and actual car deliveries at the end of the quarter. So we're talking March, and to do that, you really need to open your order book a few weeks before then.
Yeah.
So I think it, and if you think about the way Tesla has been structuring a few of their benefits, so you've got a $3,000 novated lease benefit for Model Ys delivered before the 20th of December.
22nd. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Oh, 22nd. Oh, I thought it was the 20th.
I thought it was the
but
20th. Doesn't matter anyway.
I
Around
think it's
there
the
anyway.
20th, as I recall. And then you've also got your 2.99% annual interest rate on finance through Tesla or via Tesla for threes and Ys delivered before the 31st of December. Now, some of it is also perhaps trying to bolster demand because demand might be flagging off a little bit, but it just makes a lot of sense. We know the Juniper's coming. They really need to tear off the Band-Aid as quickly as possible so that people don't sit on the sidelines and just delay a purchase. Or worst case, buy something else. But usually they just delay their purchase. And you don't want to Osborne. You might as well just ramp up production as quickly as you can at Shanghai, and which we know they can do. Open your order book and just start delivering cars.
Yeah.
You know,
So you're right, both of you guys. It is the 20th of December, unless extended, and that applies both to the lower, the 2.99% rate, as well as the novated lease.
Yeah, the lease as well.
Yep. Okay.
Because it was like a $3,000 discount or something, wasn't it?
And
Yep. Indeed.
it's actually, some of the novated lease companies were sending out emails saying, order a Model Y, you'll get $3,000 off. And the way it was worded is it sounded like they were the ones offering the $3,000. So I rang them and said, so we're getting $6,000 off now a Model Y, are we? They said, no, it's just $3,000. I said, no, well, who's offering the $3,000? Is it you or Tesla? So it's us. So all good, because Tesla's offering $3,000 as well. So it must be $6,000 then. So then very quickly they redacted that and started sending out emails saying, it's just $3,000 from Tesla.
From Tesla.
They as their own, without actually, thinking about the consequences.
Dear me. Unlike a financier to gild the lily, as you would say. Cool. Alrighty. So we've got unknown purchases of MBS and mysterious cars in unnecessary covers. Have we got any other questions or comments?
Did anyone watch the Starship launch?
Oh,
The
yes.
sixth one? I watched that, but I was probably by
There was
myself
no
watching it.
there was no catch,
No, sad.
but the daytime landing in the Indian Ocean was pretty cool off the WA coast.
Was
Yeah.
And there was only one of the flaps that actually got hot and had a little bit of burn through, but it basically landed perfectly, and I wouldn't say intact, but it did better than its booster cousin, which if you watch the NASA space flight, NSF, NASA space flight, I think that's what it was called. Their footage, there was a guy, one of the people working on that, on the crew, was saying just as it landed, he goes, I now expect it to blow up, and sure enough, within like a split second after he said blow up, it just blew up. Of course, as it landed in the belly flopped onto the water after it landed vertically. Which it's still spectacular. Apparently there was an issue with communications. I think Elon Musk tweeted out later that there was an issue with communications with the tower.
Yeah.
And he said that it probably would have landed okay, but they just didn't want to risk it.
They've got too many people around there, within a couple of kilometres of those chopsticks.
Well, it's not just that so much. It's I know Elon Musk said the most valuable stage, you've got the first stage, second stage, whatever. The most expensive infrastructure is stage 0, which is the ground infrastructure. And that sort of stuff, if you blew that up, that would take many, many months to replace.
Because they're on track for the 7th, for early January, for the 7th flight test in early January. So, they're obviously able to do that and would have delayed the whole thing, so it makes sense.
Well, I presume that even though the booster didn't get caught this time, it was all everything that occurred was within their flight parameters because they'd already pre-planned a Gulf of Mexico splashdown anyway. In that there were two, they had a plan for the splashdown or to catch it, and either were acceptable. Like it's not like
Yeah.
unexpectedly it couldn't be caught, so therefore it uncontrollably splashed down. There was an absolute. In fact, I guarantee that it would have splashed down precisely where they wanted it to, as an alternative plan. So there shouldn't be a violation with the
CC.
FAA,
Ah.
Yeah.
the FAA, because I do know. I was watching a Sabina Hossenfelder YouTube video, and she was talking about regulations and rules, and Elon Musk was describing all the rigmarole that SpaceX had to go through. It was multiple hundreds or thousands of pages of documentation. And one of the ones was they had to consider the risk to, I don't think it was dolphins, it was some other species of marine creature. Oh, was it sharks? I think it was sharks. And then so Musk then said, well, SpaceX then asked that department for information on the density, on the known density of sharks in that area. And they refused to give it to them because they were concerned that shark fishermen could use that information to fish them. So he goes, they want us to assess the risk of killing sharks without telling us the density of the sharks in the sea that we may ditch rockets into. That, by the way, every other rocket company ditches all their rockets into, without exception. And he said, even then, once we actually got that information through other means, they might have got a freedom of information thingy or whatever. He then goes, after we prepared that report, they then said, yeah, but what about whales? And he goes, well, how big is a whale compared to the ocean? And, what's the density? He doesn't see like the ocean isn't made of whales, like it's mostly just water. But yeah, that's just some of the ridiculousness that they have to go through, procedurally, which perhaps the DOGE, oh man, the Department of Government Efficiency, for which Elon Musk is not a,
He's an advisor.
yes, he's only an advisor, not a ministerial position,
Yep.
because otherwise he'd have to sell his Tesla shares and blah de blah, and not even he is that keen on doing the Doge for
He's-
that.
There's a external private sector advisor.
Which
Getting
technically
$0.
means they'd have to take no advice from him whatsoever, except they absolutely will. It's no different to a nominee director in the old days when you used to have two shareholders in a company, and if you were the only one, you'd nominate your accountant as a nominee director, just to fill in the paperwork. But yeah, so anyway,
Now, if we
So
want to
there
go back on to talking about charging, I just put a picture into the chat of Tesla transforming a Shell gas service station in Spain.
Yeah, I saw that.
excellent.
And it's interesting because I thought, well, that's all right because Europe's got more EVs. But if you have a look at the next graph, it's only 2023.
Sorry, 2 seconds. Let me just get this graph up.
So I put Spain and Australia on the graph, and you can see we're both at the same place at 2023. How long before us petrol stations start losing enough money?
Very
Shell
good point,
cars
Craig.
sold. Yes.
Very good point.
That's interesting because Spain, I actually know people that head up the Tesla Owners Club of Spain, and Tesla's had some woeful issues in trying to actually get superchargers installed. And there's been a lot of kickback and regulatory problems and power problems and all sorts of dramas. And I think one of them was it was illegal for Tesla to provide they were obliged to put in lots of other different charging handles and all sorts of paraphernalia to be open to everything and everyone, and it was just a lot of drama. But yeah, that's certainly very instructive to see. And I mean, normally it does hold that once you get to 10%, you're basically going ballistic. Although you see the UK's rounded off a little bit, but then again, of course, it's an S curve, so you'd expect the rate of uptake would decrease.
I don't think the UK's tapering off there is the top of the S curve. I think it's just a blip, just
Economic, yeah,
mid-cycle slowdown.
yeah,
Yeah,
indeed.
I put UK in there because if you look at the UK charging, you'll see they've got the grid serve and very, very large forecourts being made brand new. A real alternative to petrol stations. And
Yeah.
interesting to see Tesla's doing that now and there, but they're ahead of the curve in the UK compared to us. But it's a sad thing, but it might be the petrol stations will become our best charging options as we, think where they're putting them in now on Forest Highway, because that's where the most cars
James,
go.
during the AEVO Expo,
Yep.
sorry, let me turn that down. During the AEVO Expo, the president of the Norway Electric Vehicle Association a PowerPoint, and he showed a aerial photo of a petrol station, the before and after. And before, it was all petrol houses with a couple of EV points, EV charge points behind the building, just off to the side, as an afterthought. And then he showed the after, and all those petrol houses were replaced with DC chargers. And then where the two DC chargers were previously, in behind the building, you had the two, unleaded and diesel houses.
Yep. And you think a business model that makes more money from people walking in the shop than putting the petrol in the car.
Yeah.
What better customers than an EV? You want to have it fast because you need to get them out. You need to cycle as many people through, but you want them there for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, get a coffee, a sausage roll.
And you get shelter if you're converting fuel stations.
Yeah.
Well, in fact, at those petrol stations, people who use petrol will eat there as well.
Yeah.
But it's they have to basically fill up with fuel, move their car, park it in the car park, and then go inside. And there's always an opportunity for them to go, oh, actually, I'll just go to the next place or something. But if you're in an EV fast charging, you plug in, your car is captured for the next 10, 15, 20 minutes. And therefore, when you literally got nothing better to do than go inside and suss out for something to buy or eat or drink. So really, EV owners, I'd say the conversion rate of visitors refueling or re-energizing would be much higher on EVs than it would be on conventional fuel vehicles.
I remember about 15 years ago, a very clever engineer I worked with, project managed on Gilbarco Bowsers, and they put them all in. I think it was Shells and BPs. Pay at the pump, come in, tap your card and go. Spent, I think it was about $30 million to get all these Bowsers across things. Rolled them out, put them in. 2 weeks later, sent somebody out. They gaffer taped up all the things because revenue just plummeted. If you can pay the Bowser, you're not visiting the shop.
That's right. And it's literally, humans are so predictable.
Yeah.
You see the Mars bar, the Snickers, the Mother, the Red Bull, the whatever, the milk, I need that for home or whatever it is. Yeah, you did. I do remember those Bowsers, and they were very flash. And you're right, they all got taped up.
Yeah.
Funny that.
Yeah.
Sometimes progress is, well, new technology can be not useful to the business.
I've definitely lost weight since driving EVs. So.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Alrighty. We got any other questions or comments or news or anything?
There was a guy that got his charger stuck in his car and didn't know how to get it undone. Perhaps you could talk about how to access your manual when you're stuck in the middle of nowhere.
Okay,
Some
so
people don't read the manual, and a lot of times it's in there.
right. So for example, if you can't remember the fact that if you look on your back left-hand side, so where you look where your charge port is, pop your boot, and you will inevitably see near where you think the charge port is, there's a felt-lined sort of liner, and there should be a little tab that's got a sign. I don't know what it actually says, but it's like a little pull thing, and it's got a bit of wire, like a trace on a fishing line, and that is the manual charge port release. So it releases a little catch pin. Don't know if I've got, yeah, I might not have an example here, but basically if you look at your Type 2 cable, or in fact even a CCS cable for that matter, you'll see that there are various square-ish holes in the front of it, of the actual plug. And what your car has, I think the car has it in the top, and there's like a plastic pin that a solenoid pushes when the charge cable is engaged with your charge port. So that locks it to the car so that you don't accidentally pull it out while it's charging. And it's basically a safety feature so that you don't have arcing of the contacts and all that sort of stuff. So if for whatever reason that becomes locked on because, well, it can sometimes be jammed. So what some people might do is when they get on their phone and say unlock charge port, they may at the very same time be pulling on the cable. So you shouldn't really pull on the plug towards you, because that then puts friction between the pin and the side of the pin and the plastic of the plug. And that means that the solenoid or the mechanism might not be strong enough to withdraw that pin, and it stays attached. And then what could happen is potentially the car might error out and go, oh, I can't open, and it will refuse to try any more than a few times perhaps. So then what you can do, like I said, is go into your boot, go to effectively where the charge port is on the inside, and you will find this tab. Now, if you sort of, well, can't find it, or you sort of forget about it or something like that, you can then go into your menu on your touch screen and go into the user manual. And I think you can actually search it. So I think you can actually hit the little hourglass and the magnifying glass, and you could search and just put in charge port. And then in there'll be like a manual release, or you could also possibly search for manual release, in which case you'll find the manual door releases and also the charge port release cable. Now, if you're, on the other hand, unlucky enough that you've got a Type 2 cable and the EVSE, the let's call it the charger, although it's not actually a charger, but the charger on the pedestal, if that has grabbed onto your Type 2 cable and won't let go of it, then some of them you'll have to try and ring whoever owns the apparatus, or whether it's ChargeFox. That, for example, if it's on ChargeFox's billing network, you could try to ring them, and depending on the manufacturer, you could get, they might be able to send a signal to unlatch it. If it's an EO charger, which looks sort of like a rounded, it's a light grey color charger that's sort of rounded. It's like a bit of a cut-off football. I think there's one in Fremantle. They actually
Not
have
anymore.
oh, is it gone? Is it?
I replaced them.
Okay.
Good ones, yeah.
EO.
I'll find one for you, mate.
There are EOs around,
Yeah.
and there's a little, it's like a little square screw. It's it's like a shaft that's actually square, and you sort of need mountain climbers' fingers to sort of grip onto it and undo it. Yeah, that's it there. Oops, you just lost it. Where'd you get it from? Was that just Google that, Paul, or
Just
actually
Googled it.
you
Yeah.
just Google it? Yeah, EO
There you go.
charger. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so
Let's
those 301s are fixed now.
we'll just do
They
images.
should be energized, actually.
And I was just seeing if there was one that's on a side view. Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
So this is just open it in a new tab. Okay. Ah, bugger. Anyway, this is what it sort of looks like. That's not, that's a different, that's actually a tethered version, and it's got a type 1. But on the side, which obviously doesn't show, but just on the side, I think it's either on this panel or this panel, there's like a little sort of attachment, which if you unscrew, there is a mono wire. It's like a fishing line, thick fishing line, which if you tug on it, will release the catch to your Type 2 cable. So then you can release it from the EO charger, because unfortunately on the EO chargers, if it loses mains power, it's got no means to unlatch itself, and therefore it grabs onto your cable. Now, if you cannot get any joy with either ringing someone or doing it yourself, and I've had a couple of people ring me about this, I've always suggested, if you've got a bit of, well, you won't have masking tape, but if you've got something that you can sort of wrap around your cable and put your phone number and says, please call me because this is my cable. Because what might happen is some tech might come out, or someone might come to it later and it's subsequently detached, and then hopefully they'll ring you and then you can retrieve it. I think that's happened to someone down at, a couple of people down at Coburn Central. Yeah, I think Coburn Central, if those EOs are still there. Or unless you've replaced them, Paul.
No, not those ones.
Yeah, so they
The other one
they
you just showed, I think I've replaced that one too. So
it's not Success. No, it's not Success. Where is Coburn Central? Oh, that is. No, that
Success.
is the one at Success. Yeah, it is Success. And I've just got it here. 2 seconds. Oh no, they've been replaced by a Sercontrol. So it looks like a lot of these things have been replaced by Sercontrol. But anyway, so that's the trick with that, is manual release in the inside of your boot. And again, if you can't remember where it is or can't infer where it is, just look up your instruction manual in your car's touchscreen. And also, there might be a manual release on the EVSE. There often isn't. So then just phone a friend, or the billing provider, see if they can do something. And if if everything else fails and you need to go home, just leave a note with your charge port. With your charge cable, and then hopefully a Good Samaritan will ring you and you can go and collect it later. But yeah, thanks for that, James. In fact, have you got any other questions that anyone might have asked in the forums or anything else?
Yeah, I got a question. Obviously, Australia, we have 90. I think if you include people in units, you got 90% of people that do live in a place where they can park their car. However, a lot of people are having trouble with strata. Or you got any luck with how to convince your strata and what's allowed? I know in 2020 they changed the strata rules, and you do not need special bylaws to do with sustainability. Do you think EV would be the same way?
Well, I would have thought there'd be a great argument that an EV charging infrastructure is to do with sustainability. The problem is it's not direct. It's not solar panels. It's not, I don't know, heat pump, hot water storage or something. Yeah, I don't know is the correct answer. There's definitely issues. The problem is there's a fairly healthy anti-EV lobby, which delights in inhibiting EVs just because, and they will concoct lots of excuses as to why charging an EV in an underground car park is dangerous, or sorry, is particularly dangerous.
Thanks, Rupert.
Yeah, as
Now,
opposed to,
like obviously I understand what you're saying, but I can also sympathize if you've got a large site with underground parking and there just is no way to get power easily, inexpensively, there's a problem. But I guess a lot of that comes across to smaller units. Most of WA, we're looking at like 6 to 8 units on a green title. And you're looking at a cost of digging a trench across common land to your own meter box. So
yes. So if I was a strata, if I just bought into a strata complex, I would definitely, like, my base position is, will you allow me at entirely my own expense to do what's required to have a charger for my parking spot, entirely at my expense? And ask that question. Their answer could be yes, or it could be no, and it could be no for several reasons. So the least, well, the most, sorry, I'm just trying to send something. The most plausible reason why they would be reluctant is the argument that goes along the lines of, okay, we've got limited power to the building, limited spare power. We could do yours at your expense, but then what happens when 3 or 4 other people want the same thing? Then what do we do? And then I guess you try and say something like, well, okay, I can accept that, but if it's possible to do mine and no one else has asked, then why not just get mine done? Because at least then, well, in the sense that I won't miss out, the next person won't miss out, and if other people have to miss out, well, that's just at least the minimum number of people have missed out. Or you could say something like, well, then we could reduce the power going into my apparatus and share it with someone else. Or you could say, if we come to that stage and there's more demand at this site, at this old site, then you could up the technology and you could say, well, say if there are a certain number of additional people that want car charging, then we get a distributed power network. Actually, there's lots of ways of skinning cats these days. So one that just literally pops out of my head is, and it's expensive, is you get battery storage to buffer for you. So in fact, I was actually thinking of this because I was looking at a new unit actually, and I knew it had, which I'm not going to buy now, but I was looking at it, and it had a 10 amp GPO, and I thought, well, you get 130 Ks overnight, but I've got 2 EVs and I drive mine like tires are free and all I got to do all day is sit in my car and drive. So I would be inconvenienced with just 10 amps, from a GPO. Although, I mean, my car's often at home, so I could just leave it at home all day and my wife could just use it at night time and we'd get by. But I had a thought, well, I could just install a small battery system and an inverter and basically trickle charge the batteries at 10 amps, single phase, and then I could charge my car at 32 amps single phase, which is a lot quicker. Because, if I had, say, 30 kilowatt hours of storage, that's more than half a car's worth, and then the rest can go in overnight or something like that. So there's So, you could do battery buffering, you could do power sharing. Power sharing will cost more, but for example, Tesla wall connectors, unfortunately, you've got to have Wi-Fi in your car park, so you've got to pay for Wi-Fi, but that's not that expensive. You can daisy chain 4 of those so that all 4 can share one lot of power, and that can be single phase or 3 phase. So there's lots of ways of skinning cats that a strata company that wasn't ideologically opposed to EVs could consider. And again, strictly at the cost of to the owners. Now, if you're a tenant, of course, then all the bets are off. You're at you've got a double lot of resistance, which is the landlord in the first instance, and then the strata company in the second instance. But yeah, old buildings are a real challenge, which is why the federal government building regulations, the nationwide building regulations, do stipulate that new structures have to be EV ready. Although I
There's
think
also there's also another option. You could propose to put in a communal charging port,
yes,
port, so that at least in the interim, it gets around that issue of, well, okay, if we've only got limited power, you can put yours in, but what if 2 or 3 other people want to put more charges in down the track and they can't? What do we do then? So proposing to put in a communal one is another option there.
yeah, absolutely. And actually, that's a pretty good option because, yes, it means there's a bit of a faff because you've got to rely on people doing the right thing and moving their car after they've charged it. And, it's not perfect, but it's a pretty viable solution. And if you could perhaps look, if you had 2 bays and you had a 2-headed charger, that would really alleviate a lot of the problem because chances are there's always be a bay that's spare.
Or just put the charger between the 2 bays. So at least the people don't have to move it. They can just unplug it from one, plug it into the next one, Hopefully, if you live in a community, you know who the other car is. Hey, Harold, you finished? Can you remotely unplug your car so I can plug it in?
Yes, exactly. So, yeah, that's certainly, something that can be done. But for new places, the good news is that they are basically being highly encouraged / compelled to at least have a minimal amount of EV charging. Although obviously there is a bit of a noisy lobby trying to cast shade on EVs and accuse them of, we've discussed this before, of requiring elaborate levels of fire suppression and things like that, which is kind of true in one sense, but if you compare it to the risk of an EV catching fire in an underground car park or any car park compared to any other vehicle, again, just a little bit of logic goes a long way. Well, ought to.
I guess the bare minimum is if you can just get a 10 amp plug in, that's better than nothing, and it's a good start.
You could also point to the WA state government's position paper on EV charging, and they've got a section on residential, and I think they talk about, so the recommendation is, 1 AC charger per bay. So, yeah, you could definitely point to that.
Yeah, exactly. I was just trying to find, I might have to do it. This is going to be a bit clunky if I do it this way, but
Oh, pardon me.
because unfortunately on X, for whatever reason, it's not showing. Sorry, I just got to turn the volume down, and I'll just spotlight myself just to show it temporarily. But if you want to get an indication of, risk of fire and all that sort of thing of an EV compared to something that's say containing 100 litres or 80 litres or 50 litres of petrol, then have a look at this. Gotta try and set myself up a bit better. Play.
Yeah.
And that's something that, you know, obviously can happen. And if that was an EV that had rolled on a freeway, yes, it would have, it might have caught on fire, but it wouldn't have spread, you know, flammable liquids rolling, you know, down in gutters and whatever.
And onto
Hey, Harold.
other containers of flammable liquids.
Could I just
Exactly.
jump in for a sec, guys? Sorry.
Don't know
Hey,
how you
Pete,
going.
what was
Go.
what was
How'd
your
you go?
best run in the stealth? 11.48, wasn't it?
Sorry,
How'd you go,
Damo,
Damo?
who are you talking to? Pete, you're
Pete.
trying to get, I don't know if Pete's there. Pete, are you there?
Sorry, what was that, Damo?
What was your best run in the stealth? It was 11.48 or 11.45?
Oh, mate, you're testing my memory. I like to say the latter, but can I take that question on notice and get back to you?
Yeah, for sure, Pete. Sorry, guys.
I don't know off the top of my heart. Sorry, Damo.
Just that
I'm
stealth just went 11.45 one, I think. So I think you might have you, Pete.
Oi!
All right, I'll talk to you later. Cheers. Bye.
No worries. Good on you, Damo.
Hey, Damo, before you go, how did you go tonight?
Yeah, good.
How did-
I wiped 2.2 of a second or 0.02 of a second off my PB. So 11.13. I'm pretty happy. So
Good boy.
it's fast. And Harold's charger definitely made a difference as well. So it's good. I have to get one myself.
Disappointed, Damo, you didn't live stream and the that would have been the first.
Yeah, sorry, James. I'll do
Camera
it
on the
next time.
dashboard for the next run, can you, mate?
Yeah, I'll do it next time. Oh, no, we're finished now. But I'll
Alright.
do it next time for you, I promise, James.
No worries. You're fairly
Alright.
lucky because one of the few places we can still race EVs in Australia.
Yeah, I know.
I think it's
I know.
barbecue. I think it's here and Tailem Bend, isn't it? The only two
Yeah, I
places left
know.
in Australia.
Sucks, eh?
Tailem Bend's a good spot because there's a supercharger right next to it.
Yes.
All right, I'll got to get going and pack up.
Yeah,
I'll
no
talk
worries.
to you
Take care,
later.
Damo. Thanks for that, mate.
Cheers. Bye. Thanks, Harold. Bye.
No worries.
That actually brings us to what I was going to point out as an engineer, is that people here are using the word risk rather loosely. Risk is a combination of likelihood and consequence, and the likelihood of an EV catching fire is very, very low. The consequence, however, is that yes, they burn a lot harder and a lot faster. The risk is the combination of the two, and because of the low likelihood, the risk is actually quite low, whereas the likelihood of a ICE vehicle or a petrol or diesel or whatever catching fire is quite high. The consequence is not as low. The risk is therefore, give or take, the same. Sorry, just being technical.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Yep.
any day,
And-
any car is on fire in your garage is a bad day. Doesn't matter how it's fueled.
This is very true, but the likelihood of an EV catching
Yeah.
fire in your garage is very, very small. The consequence of any car catching fire in your garage is catastrophic.
Is not great. That's right. Because, and in fact, your house might not burn down, but it could be effectively written off due to something as simple as water damage, which,
Yeah.
you know, either way, depending on the construction, you've got to replace giant slabs of your house, whether it be plasterboard walls or even double brick. All your carpets are wrecked. You can't get the moisture out. You'll get rising damp. It'll affect your plaster on your double brick walls. You're having a bad day. You really are. And the thing too is, if all the EVs in an underground car park, sorry, if all the cars in an underground car park were EVs, then you wouldn't have to have all the cacophony of all of those ventilation ducting that you see that often restricts the height of cars in certain parking bays, because they have to basically go to the very depths, especially if it's like like a proper underground car park. You've got to bring fresh air to the very corner of the depth of the car park and blow fresh air into it to displace all the carbon monoxide and other pollutants that simply idling cars as they're driving around produce. And EVs emit nothing.
Exactly.
The only thing a Tesla emits when it's driving around in a car park is deionized water, fresh water from its air conditioning system. And that's it. Or it might emit a few objectionable sounds from the pedestrian warning system, but that's another story. Thankfully, the Model Ys and the 3s, only when you're going forwards, that noise isn't so objectionable. It's just the reversing one that is.
Yeah,
But
but you may
anyway.
have to wear your tin foil hat because of the EMF, remember?
Well, the thing is, we sort of cheekily did suss out the noisemaker, but apparently now Tesla's unified it with the horn. So
That
for
was
those
actually going to be my question. I haven't inspected a newer car, but I was wondering
Apparently
if the maker might have a loose plug on it.
no, because then you lose your horn.
That's
So if you had a
unfortunate.
loose plug, you would lose the horn, and you really do need the horn. Oh, which I haven't bothered to take it off my thumb drive, but I was driving to have a look at. I was actually looking at the new Kings Park supercharger install, which is
Oh, cool.
progressing well. They've got the transformer. It's very strange. They've got the. I'm pretty sure they've got the transformer installed, which is adjacent to the power units, which is adjacent to the stalls. But then there's actually underground power that's come from the other side of Kings Park Road, and on the verge-ish, they've got a big hole cut out, and you've got three very big cables, which would be probably 22 kV, and then you've got three smaller fat cables going to presumably where the superchargers are, well, going to there. But the differential in size is just really strange, unless they're intending on putting like the equivalent of an underground switching doodad, whatever, like an interconnect. It almost seemed like the transformer would go there, but there is a very fresh looking transformer right next to the stalls. And I just don't know whether they put two transformers, whether maybe they've got 33 kV and they've got to go from 33 to 11 or 22 and then go. So there might be two transformers. I'm not exactly sure, but it is progressing. But anyway, on my way to Kings Park, I think it's at Fraser Avenue where you go up St George's Terrace up the hill, and then it sort of veers to the right, and left is Fraser Avenue. Well, as I was going around the corner in the left lane, this person in a Toyota something, just as I was cresting, going around, just jumped out, not in front of me, but she was going to T-bone me on probably my back wheel, properly T-bone. So I gunned it, swerved, and on the dash cam footage, you just can't tell, like when you look in the rear view image, when you see the next frame, her car is halfway in the lane. And it's like, oh man, so close. So close. And unfortunately, because I can't order the Juniper right now, it would have been really bad timing to have my car written off. Although I would have loved to have had the battery pack, I would definitely have bought that off the RAC. But anyway.
you'd need to get some more stickers if you did that, Harold.
Well, it actually prompted me to take the stickers off because, I mean, and that was the irony. It's a white car with these red garish electric adventure, big electric adventure stickers on it. So it couldn't have been less visible. Sorry, more visible. But anyway, near miss, which hopefully will be the last one. But yeah, go Tesla for the win. The acceleration definitely got me out of the poo because I was literally thinking the next thing I'm going to feel is a tap and then me spinning around around the corner, having an ordinary day.
Yeah.
But missed it by that much.
Hey, Harold, speaking of Kings Park, do we have any updates as to whether the charger there may be up before Christmas?
No, but you know, I guess it depends on Western Power. I am confident that Tesla will be ready. Just don't know about Western Power because they are the ultimate arbiters of what gets turned on and what doesn't get turned on. So
And when?
and with what may or may not be missing from their kit of parts that are required, a la
High
Ravensthorpe.
voltage elbow.
Exactly. So I know that Tesla will be ready. Whether the superchargers will be ready, yeah, you know, unfortunately, Western Power is its own instrumentality, and its own monopoly. It literally sets the rules and does the final connection or well, yeah, effectively the final connection at its whim with no KPI, it seems, that's enforceable because if Ravensthorpe was allowed to run for 9 months, well, then I could see Kings Park could run for anywhere between 1 week or a year. But yeah, let's hope, Pete. Yeah.
Just
But-
in the chat, I've put a photograph of Damo that he posted of his car and his charger.
It's just loading up. Oh, he's got a few photos.
Yep.
Here we go. There you go. There's a good looking CTEC. Which I had to remind Damo how to turn the power down because it was popping the circuit breaker. But yeah, good looking.
That's good. But there's also a while we're all looking at that, there is a question in the chat. Hi, where's the problem?
I did give him a tutorial on how to do that.
Yes.
It mustn't have been.
Yeah, he did, but he forgot. Go, James. So there's a question in the chat.
Yep. Hi, what is the problem with the cruise control? I have a 2021 Model 3, bought secondhand. The cruise control and autopilot are so unpredictable. Sometimes it changes speed in line with the speed signs. Sometimes it reads the sign, but it doesn't react. Sometimes it doesn't read the signs and doesn't react. Like to hear your comments.
Okay, so the reacting is different because it will not react to different speed signs. But what it should generally do is, say if your speed is set to 80, that's your cruise control or autopilot speed, and you're in the city, and it comes across, say, a 60 speed limit sign or a 100 speed limit sign or a 70 for that matter, it should generally and will generally show that as the suggested speed, but it won't automatically alter the set speed for your cruise control or autopilot. So in order to make the car adjust to the suggested speed, you've either got to tap on that suggested speed limit sign on the screen while you're in cruise control or autopilot, or you can, if you've got a Model Y or an older Model 3, you can pull down on your right stalk, which is generally your gear lever, for lack of a better term, the right-hand stalk. if you're in a highland, I think in a highland you can't do that actually. I think from memory, I think you have to just tap on I thought you might be able to tap on the menu button to do autopilot and you do a long press, but I'm not sure that that works. So in that case, you may have to just tap on the suggested speed limit symbol to get the car to alter the set speed for cruise control or autopilot. But generally, it doesn't always happen, but generally when it sees a new speed limit sign, it ought to obey it. Sometimes it doesn't see them properly and it won't notice. But other times it'll see something like a roadworks sign, which will then have a lower speed limit, such as 40, but you don't always have a new speed limit or the return to the normal speed limit at the end of the roadworks. And then frustratingly, the car will maintain the previously detected 40 k's an hour for sometimes many, many kilometers. And that can be quite frustrating. And when that happens, regardless of what the real speed limit is, if the car thinks the suggested speed limit is 40, that's all you can do on autopilot. In urban areas you can actually go faster. So if it's around Perth, even though the suggested speed limit is 60, you can set cruise control or autopilot to 110. If you're in the bush, it's weird. Tesla has a different policy that then says you cannot alter the speed limit by more than 10 k's an hour. And even that you have to actually do in the offset, I think. I think you have to offset it by 10 k's an hour. So if you're stuck in a 40 zone, the fastest you can go on autopilot is 50 k's an hour until either there's a GPS coordinate on a map that has like a bit of a reset to 100 k's or 110 k's an hour, or if it sees a speed limit sign that it recognizes at a new speed limit. So yeah, it can be a little bit frustrating, but the car in the city will not automatically react to speed limit signs. In the country, if you're an autopilot and the speed limit reduces, it will actually automatically slow down once it goes past the sign. Bearing in mind, of course, it's illegal. Sorry, when you pass a slower speed limit sign, you have to be doing the slower speed limit before you pass the sign. You can't be doing 110 k's an hour, hit an 80, and be slowing down from 110 at the 80 sign. You've got to be doing 80. And unfortunately, the car doesn't do that, but it does slow down. One thing it seems to have stopped doing now is it doesn't really seem to be doing the automatic speeding up back to the speed limit automatically. But again, on a stalk car, just pull down your right-hand stalk for probably 2 seconds, maybe a bit less, and it will basically adjust its set speed to the suggested speed. And if you're in a Highland 3, I think the only thing you can do is just tap on the suggested speed limit symbol on your screen.
Or
you
use
can
the
disengage
scroll wheel.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, right. And for all cars, you can use the scroll wheel to either notch up by 1k an hour increments slowly, or if you sort of like spin the wheel a bit quicker, it'll notch up in 5 kilometer per hour increments. Yeah, thanks, Steve. That's a very important point.
Hey, also, Harold, can you hear me okay?
Yes, Chuck, gotcha.
Yeah, cool. I'm in the car, so I wasn't sure what the audio was like. I think with the 2024 Model 3 with the Highlands, there's an autopilot button on the steering wheel on the right-hand side.
Yes.
And I think that acts the same as the double tap does on the stalks. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think actually a shout out to Russell Bell, who definitely watches this program and no doubt throws bricks at his screen. He's probably got a bulletproof screen. I thought I had a discussion with Russell whereby I think long pressing on the autopilot button didn't make it do that. but I could be mistaken. I think it might not, which
Yeah,
which
'cause-
is an oversight.
yeah.
So we,
Do you remember a software update just before the Highland came out, which changed the behaviour of the autopilot stalk to just need one tap? I think it was,
yes,
and no one liked it, so we all changed it back in the settings.
the
So
double
or something
tap.
like that.
Yes, yes,
Yeah, I think that was to get people used to that behaviour on the Highland with the button. I think it's just the button only
Yeah.
has the one button. The
yeah.
one
Gotcha.
tap feature. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, the big problem with the single tap to get to autopilot was you could never get into TAC
Yeah,
because
that's it.
if it didn't want to go into autopilot, there was no means of going into TAC because you had to go to autopilot first and then do a hard wiggle, well, a hard movement of the steering wheel to disengage autopilot to go
Yeah,
into
that's it.
TAC.
Yeah.
And that was so super frustrating that, yeah, most of us just went, no, you're crazy. We'll have a double tap for autopilot, thanks, because at least then we know that we can always get TAC
Yeah,
in the
that's
absence
right.
of autopilot. But yeah, thanks for that, Chuck. And I don't know if you heard my rant about the NRMA earlier.
I did.
Yeah,
Yes.
totally abominable. But anyway, one day we'll be able to drive EVs around Australia and not have to worry about charging because it will be working perfectly.
Yeah, it's a bit strange what if that's true about them basically holding sites for themselves, because quite a few of the ones in Western Australia, there's only one realistic place for the site. Like there's one roadhouse at that location or whatever, and WAEV's already got in there. So what are they doing there? Where they're the second one off the rank?
Well, the answer is I can bet London to a brick that there are zero exclusivity arrangements at any of those sites. Because I know, for example, Synergy have openly stated that their intention is not to dominate the market or inhibit the market. So they're very conscious of having price parity, so they're not undercutting the market so as to inhibit other entrants from coming in. Something that the NRMA probably don't deserve to know, but it's useful for anyone else, is I know one of the things that that Horizon Power have done for a lot of their sites is actually utilize access agreements, universal access agreements with main roads, so that they can put their infrastructure on the road reserve. So the beauty of that is, in fact, what I would suggest anyone else does, whether that's well, say in Australia, say like the RAA, or if it's RACQ or any other company that wants to install chargers at those exclusive locations, is they ought to negotiate with the relevant main roads department in each state, I presume they're state instrumentalities, to get access to the road reserve, and you just house your charger next door. Because the roadhouses only have exclusive use of the land that comprises the roadhouse. So, for example, at Majura Pass Oasis motel / roadhouse, Horizon Power isn't actually, there's no agreement with the roadhouse. They're actually citing the WEV network off-grid charger on the road reserve that literally happens to be out the front of the Majura Pass service station, but it's not controlled by them.
Not on their land.
So it's not on their land.
And there's another one at the top of the Majura Pass, and right near Nullarbor Roadhouse, there's quite a nice whale lookout, and there's plenty of places around there that could be used.
Precisely, and I would encourage any other operator, and that's probably something we should highlight publicly, and that's probably a good thing, because look, I do know that it took Horizon Power a long time to get a boilerplate agreement document done and agreed to, but once the boilerplate was done, it was literally a rinse and repeat. because road reserve is road reserve under a state jurisdiction.
Yeah.
And one great thing about road reserves too is it gets you away from many other issues that could surround Crown land and otherwise pastoral lease land. And that's things like environmental issues, indigenous land issues and other access issues, because the road reserve is kind of like a universally tainted and commandeered section of land that's for the exclusive use of a road. And they're a lot wider than most people think, particularly the highways. They're a minimum of like 50 meters either side. And in fact, you'll notice on the Nullarbor, you'll see that there are two fiber optic cables, usually one on either side of the highway, and they straddle the road reserve. They're on the outer edge of the road reserve. So
they're
that's
putting a new one in right now. Saw it going down.
fiber optics.
Yep.
Was well over 50 meters off the road. It was a long way off the road. And the other nice thing about using that road reserve type arrangement is that it discourages the eventually it will discourage the service station owners, etc., from putting in these exclusivity arrangements or charging exorbitant rental rates, because they're the ones who are going to lose because no one's going to buy the $7 pie.
And a classic example of that is Manila, which I'm looking forward to trying. Thankfully, because I'm not silly enough to tow a caravan this time, I don't need it to get to Nanyatara, but I will be checking it. Unfortunately, according to ChargeFox, it says that it's been dialed down to 30 kilowatts because they have some more refurbishment to do at the site on the standalone power supply system, which is, to be frank, is a bit of a concern, because 50 kilowatts is not a lot of energy, just quietly. Particularly since, this thing has been allegedly professionally designed by the contractor who is selling the equipment, and anyway, but Manila it's not at the Manila River Roadhouse. It's 8 kilometers at the Exmouth Manila turnoff to the highway, because a mutually agreeable arrangement could not be gotten between Horizon Power and that location. So it's at the turnoff, and that's okay because you only need to be there for 20 minutes. So so hopefully, in light of the allegation that NRMA seems to have gotten some exclusivity arrangements, at least with one or two places, perhaps, and presumably others. I don't even know about Earl Dunder, but it certainly got me thinking about the Stuart Highway and all of those locations. And I guess if they've sought exclusivity at one or two or other locations, perhaps that's their normal method of operation. Just circling back to where they're going to co-locate, presumably with the WAV network. Thankfully, of course, because they're coming second, well, it would be quite ridiculous if they tried to get exclusivity retrospectively. But hey, if I was a corporate entity for a for-profit company, that's absolutely what I'd do, because, for example, allegedly or apparently at Glendambo, I don't know whether it was a Caltex site, it's where the RAA's entombed charger is. I'll just quickly check whether that was what brand it was. But apparently the owner of the opposing service station 150 meters down the road, purchased the I'll just grab it. Here we go, Glendambo Roadhouse. That looks like a Caltex. Is that a
Yeah,
Caltex?
an Ampol.
Ampol, sorry. Ampol. So, and down the road is, I think, a BP. I can't exactly remember. But anyway, the owner of the service station down the road bought the Ampol, and did what you'd always do if you got two service stations in one town, you just buy the second one and shut it down. And it's a free country, and you're entitled to do it. There's no law against buying your opposition and closing them down.
Maybe
So
Tesla should.
unfortunately, obviously for for EV owners, the new owner has also seen it fit to fit a cyclone fence entombing these chargers, which are only 7 kilowatt chargers, but they're better than nothing, especially if you're towing something. But anyway, cool. So obviously we circle back to chargers, but have we got any questions on that or anything else?
Richard's got his hand up.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh,
I do, but I've probably got a little bit of a long one. But James, if you've got one that's relatively short because you've got your hand up as well, then go for it.
Mine was just quickly, like, do we know anyone with a couple of caravans with lots of battery storage? They could just park on the Nullarbor and sell coffees from the van and charge up passing.
Genius.
Hire a couple of backpackers, park your caravan on the Nullarbor. Shane, Harold, not looking at anyone in particular.
James, a little bit more storage and a few more panels.
And I've got to say, I'm kind of done with caravanning. I'm over it.
Whereas I'm going, I really want to make Mark II.
Yeah, but you've only gone around Australia in a caravan once, Shane. So I'll give you that extra.
I'm slack. I know.
I reckon everyone's got 2 trips in a caravan and then they're done.
Yeah. Well, my next one, if I manage to get off my butt and make Mark II, then that would possibly be a solar lap, like a pure solar lap. That would be my next. That would be my next hurdle to jump over.
Yeah, I'm just. Yeah, good luck with that.
I have some cunning plans.
It'll be a rather cunning stunt to be able to pull that one off, or a slow one. It'll be slow because every day...
It won't be 40 days. I guarantee you that. But no. I can do it in 6 months and see a whole pile of stuff while I'm at it.
Actually, while this has just come to mind, and then we'll go straight to you, Richard. It just came to mind. I was seconds away from buying a Starlink mini dish because I wanted to get the $80 a month plan for the roaming service, because I'm currently paying $174, $175 a month for the rectangular Starlink dish that I've siliconed into the glass roof of my car. And I saw that JB Hi-Fi had dishes available on special for $299. I think.
I think that's
$399.
I think that's what we've got there, and that's also $80 a month roaming. Yeah. The dish is about yay big. It's about an A2 sheet.
I think it was. It
was.
Not
a dish.
No, it was a Starlink mini, and I'm just going to very quickly search.
$599.
Give me 2 seconds.
Sorry, $599. Sorry, because it was down from $800.
Yeah, $200 off.
Yep, and I was this close from actually buying it. Because I did notice that when you buy it, in fact, I'll just bring it up on Starlink, and it there was a part of it that said, yeah, no, is that the mini? Yeah, that's a mini.
No, it's a mega.
No, that's a big one.
That's
No, that's
not
a
a
big one.
That's not a mini.
No, so the mini is this one.
Like A4 size.
But I did see in the details where it basically said that you have to, when you buy it, you have to actually get yourself you've got to log online to actually connect it to the internet. Like you've got to actually, service plan that is suited to meet your needs. Oh, no, somewhere. Anyway, I saw that you've basically got to, engage a plan. So that got me onto my Starlink service, and I logged in, and then I looked at my existing mobile Starlink, and you could actually change plans, and there were like 1 terabyte guaranteed high service that cost lots, and a 10 terabyte and a 50. There was like all these different service plans, but I was able to downgrade my old rectangular dish down to $80 a month. So I immediately did that. I think by the end of this month or early next month, it's going to do that automatically, and I only cost $80 a month. And then with that, you can also then just cancel it at any time, and then re-enable it when you use it. So I just basically saved myself $600 buying a dish, a mini one that I didn't need to, because I could basically change the way that the bigger dish worked. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, I just thought
It's very interesting, Harold, because I don't use my big Starlink very often, because you've got to pay for a whole month and 170 or so. It's worth doing if I'm away for 3 or 4 weeks, but it's not worth doing for a couple of days.
So downgrade it to an 80. Unfortunately, you'll probably, I don't know if you've got it suspended, whether you can unsuspend it into an 80 or whether they'll make you pay the 174 the once. But yeah, definitely have a look at it on your account, Steve. And like I said, I never knew that was a thing until I looked at random. But yeah, there you go. Okay, sorry, Richard, you've been waiting very patiently, and I know you got a long question, which I'm going to really enjoy discussing.
Yeah, yes. So just for context, I gave him a heads up that I'd ask this. So because I'm a massive nerd, I read Australian Standard 4777.2 Addendum 2 for August 2024 today, which is the grid connection of energy systems via inverters. Because I just just wanted to see what there was in there that was related to, well, obviously, my own personal interest in having vehicle to grid, at some point. But I didn't understand most of it because I'm not an electrical engineer, I'm a comms engineer. But there's a bit in it that I wanted to raise with, the group and Harold, because it said that the scope was for low voltage systems with nominal values of 230 volts / 400 volt. And I thought, Cybertruck and many other vehicles being 800 volt architectures, I thought, does that mean that then that's not, that it doesn't cover architectures up to 800 volt?
So
it also then references,
no. It's talking the AC side. So the 240 volt is your single phase AC. The 415 volt is your 3-phase AC.
Yeah, so it's talking the grid connection. It's basically talking about the inverter connecting to the grid. And Shane, what's the definition of low voltage? Is it below 1,000 AC?
1 kV, yeah. Well, no, so extra low voltage is below 50 volts DC.
Low voltage. Isn't it? Yeah, so
low voltage is below a kilovolt, 1 kilovolt, and then after you go over a kilovolt, then you're into high voltage, and then you got extra high voltage, which is I think 33 kV.
Yep.
Lots, like very, very zappy.
So what they're talking about, and so even though low voltage goes all the way up to 1,000 volts AC, in Australia, the standard is either 240 volt RMS single phase, and in fact, actually 3-phase is 240 volt per phase. But when you then measure phase to phase, you get 415 or 440 or whatever it is, phase to phase. RMS, which then
Because you're
when
up
you
by
take
120
no, when
degrees,
you
aren't you,
take
or
yeah, and
something?
when you take the peak of the sinusoids, that actual voltage is a fair bit higher than that. It's is it root two or is it one on root three? No,
Route three.
root
Route three.
square root
Okay.
three. So
Yeah, but
Mm.
it's a lot higher. The peak of the sign of the RMS 240 is a lot higher.
so
Okay. So I
240.
just
So that's
misunderstood. So
yeah.
yeah. Okay. So it's just talking. So when it's talking about exporting or importing power back out, it's only talking about 240 volt in Western Australia AC, and the 800 volt or 400 volt architecture is on the inside of the car side.
Yes,
It's on the DC side.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
and
Yeah. Okay.
it's got nothing to do with feeding into the grid. It's got to do with there'll be its own standard. In fact, they'll probably generate another standard that lays in parallel with the EVSE standards for DC charging. Because if you think about it, the vehicle to grid apparatus, and like I keep banging on, I know for a fact that the dearest component out of this interface is the cable.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Is the DC cable. The rest of it is really simple because if you look, and I've said this last week, I think, or the week before, if you look at a Fronius hybrid inverter or a SolarEdge hybrid inverter that is connected to a 400 volt battery pack that's external, in fact, they almost all are external, effectively, the car is the external battery pack. And the inverters today that are the Fronius inverters, the Grow Watts, all of those inverters, by standards regulation, have to do things like with every 24-hour period, have to do a isolation test, which necessitates, which is why they can't be used for off-grid. Sorry, they can, but they don't work very well because they always disconnect every 24 hours if they are grid interactive inverters, because by law they have to, every 24 hours to check for isolation integrity against leakage of the DC to chassis or to whatever. So all of that stuff is done by the inverters today. The only difference is your house-based batteries, 400 volt batteries, are hardwired to the inverter, whereas for an EV, they are plugged into. But again, the action of plugging and what happens when things get unplugged is already incorporated within the CCS standard of fast charging. So really you're just bolting together a CCS interface component with pre-existing architecture that needs no more refinement or no more enhancement to be able to handle what an EV is.
So I have a further question then. So presumably, so where I have to buy a box, something that connects. So say for argument's sake, I've got a Cybertruck sitting in the garage. I've got my SolarEdge inverter. I've got a gateway. I've got Powerwalls. What would I need? I presume I'd need something from Tesla.
Okay, so that's totally different because the Cybertruck uses its PC power control module, which is basically its onboard charger, which actually, if you look at one of the Munro Live videos about it, it's typical of Tesla. They've basically taken about 4 different sub-assemblies or subcomponents and melded them all together into the one thing. Yeah. So this thing actually, not only does it charge the car through DC and AC and provide the 48 volt 48 volt supply for the entire car, it also provides up to 9 kilowatts of split phase, let's call it 240 volts roughly, output. So a Cybertruck in particular, you could have a Powerwall gateway So you got to use that package that they described, that the home charging package or whatever that comes bundled when you get a when you get a Foundation Cybertruck. Oh, which by the way, the Foundation series has ended in the United States, but Tesla are still selling Foundation series Cybertrucks into Canada, which I thought was quite interesting, which means there's hope for us Cybertruck order holders to potentially, if we wanted to, get Foundation series Cybertrucks for Australia, perhaps. But anyway, Cybertruck's different because it can produce probably 9. I don't know, because in America they're single phase. So America they have high power single phase charging.
Single phase,
in Australia we have medium power single phase and medium power or high power 3-phase. So the Cybertruck, depending, may be able to either produce 8, 9, 10 kilowatts of 3-phase.
So would Western Power then consider that to be an additional inverter capacity?
Oh, yeah, don't even get me into that. Oh, yeah, that's just nuts. Yes, that's correct. Western Power will kill it for everyone because they already do.
Fuck. Yeah, right.
Because on the Powerwall 3, apparently they just don't believe Tesla when it says we can control the absolute everything out of it.
Yeah.
And we will never let one electron rip into the grid ever, if that's what you want. Mandatorily, the charging and discharging ability of a Powerwall, it has to be limited to 1.5 kilowatts. If you have additional
export,
and it's just
which is ridiculous because it's behind the meter. So
well, I think it's import. It's import as well. On the AC side, of course, the Powerwall 3, for example, has at least 3 MPPT solar inputs, so you can put as many panels, I think, as you like, maybe. But on the AC side, because of the literal stupidity of the regulators in refusing to admit that the technology can just do what it's designed to do properly, and they do this stupidity of counting up the sum of inverters and just presume that at all times that's what's active.
Yes.
When it's just not.
So I'm just trying to preempt then that, sure, we might be able to get vehicles to grid, but then you try and put that equipment in and Western Power say, nah.
Yep, exactly. Until the government regulates that it's a good thing for the grid and almost makes you do it. They will stop you until it's so glaringly obvious to their benefit, in which case they'll make you do it. Sorry, Shane, you were going to say something.
Well, one is that it is actually good for the grid because it stabilizes things.
Of course.
2 is that there's another option there, and that is that you put a changeover switch in your house so that you can just flick it over like I do, and you just live off grid entirely and happy days.
I did think that, but
the other one is the other point I was going to say is in that standard that you were referring to, they refer to power conversion equipment or PCEs, and that's what they're talking about. The voltage limits are on the grid side of that power conversion equipment. On the
yes, actually I did see that.
That standard doesn't talk about what has to happen it doesn't talk much about what has to happen on the on your side of that power conversion equipment. It's only the I did see that. It's all fresh in my mind. There's a completely different standard, and I can't quite remember the number of it. Or maybe it's a different section of that standard that talks about batteries specifically.
Was it AS60038? Because I read that as well, because that related to it. Because it kind of talks about the voltages, and then it referenced this other document, so I read that as well. But and that had a table in there that went between 100 volt and 1,000 volt. But anyway, I probably went off on tangent.
Off the top of my head, I would have said it started with a 4 and it was 4 digits long, but it talks about batteries and where you're allowed to have your batteries and what ventilation you need
Oh
to
no,
have around.
no, I didn't see that.
And it basically says that you can't put your battery pack in your lounge room. You have to put it in the garage and that sort of stuff.
And you need to physically protect it from
And
collisions
bollards
with
as well,
vehicles.
doesn't it, Shane?
Bollards, yeah.
Sorry, what was that, Steve?
Yeah, bollards, if there's a chance of your battery being driven into, like in your garage, I think you have to put bollards in the way now too.
Yeah, that sort of thing. Yeah, you need. It's basically, yeah, stop damage to your battery and don't gas yourself.
Yeah, I'm getting a second Powerwall 2,
Oh, it's the best.
and the installer has said that Western Power are going to limit each battery to 2.5 kilowatts.
That's right.
Put a changeover switch in.
Yeah, I'm thinking that.
It's just appalling. It's stupidity to the highest degree. Because the Powerwall can be proven to not let a single drip of electron leave the house if that's what it's instructed to do, instantaneous's.
And do you know what's ridiculous as well? The Powerwall 2s, I think they have a 7 kilowatt inverter in them, which Western Power gets your installers to tell Tesla to limit. So it's already being software limited.
Yep.
So, well, what's the problem?
Well, the problem is the stupid regulations.
Yeah.
Stupid interpretation of the regulations.
Can I put
so
a
I'm not
Tesla
I'm not
Powerwall?
I'm not a fan of Western Power and their regulations or Synergy or any of those. But in their defense, I'm just going to say control systems and Nullarbor Roadhouse charger. And that's why they have these rules, right?
Who would do such a thing?
It's because you can buy equipment from less than reputable suppliers who don't do their software testing properly, they don't do their hardware testing properly, and they can do things that they're not supposed to do. That's why the regulations are in place.
But you should be able to certify your equipment to the satisfaction of the regulators to say it will behave as indicated.
Yeah,
there should be that option.
And that is the option that's missing.
Yep. James, I think was the image on that you've uploaded? Is that what you wanted to refer to?
Yeah.
You mean that's a retro caravan? It's a coffee stand. Very good.
I think that's Mark III.
Brilliant.
I think that's Mark III, Harold. I might watch some more panels than that. That doesn't look like quite enough panels, but that looks like Mark III.
I think they're bifacial, so you get a bit more out of them.
Oh, that is
cool.
hilarious. That is hilarious.
Yeah, the panels aren't optimized for the sun either.
Well,
neither is Harold's coffee anyway, so I wouldn't bother.
Very good.
I would have said that the sun in that picture is rather close because are we bringing it back up? Yeah, there you go. The shadows behind the car, for example, are almost vertical, and the shadows behind the Tesla Charger are a long way from vertical.
Yeah, that's a conspiracy. I reckon. I reckon.
Yeah.
I reckon
It's
that's
a flat
a image. That's been simulated. I can't. That's outrageous.
I think
Surely
that was
it's not
taken on the
reckon.
moon. The photograph was taken on the moon in 1969.
That's right, exactly. Because they've had to on the moon. You would not have a horizon as straight as that. So I reckon they'd have corrective lensing on the image, and that's why it's distorted the sun shadows. That's what it is.
CGI.
CGI. Oh, very good. Actually, on that note, although we don't really have a hard cut-off for the 2 hours anymore, but time is moving on, and I do have to get up at pre-Sparrows to try and get to Nanyatara tomorrow night. So I think we might just wrap it up, unless anyone's got a screaming question or comment before we go.
A yes, no question. Can I put as many solar panels as I want on my roof of my garage, connect it to a Tesla Powerwall, completely isolated, and charge my car off that, not
Yes.
touching the grid in
Yes.
the suburbs?
Yes, indeed,
As long
you
as it
can.
conforms to AS 3000.
No,
Yep.
yeah, 3000, the wiring rules. Yes, you can, because it's not connected to the grid, so therefore the grid, Western Power literally has nothing to say, but building regulation, like
Yeah, obviously,
yeah. Yep.
But in that case, could the Powerwall then run at its full 7 kilowatts?
Yes.
Yep.
The only thing
Or
is,
you
will
could install
Tesla
an even
be
bigger
prepared
one
to-
and
the only thing is,
or you could
will-
install it. Sorry, Howard.
no, you go, Shane, and then I'll do my bit.
I was going to say, yes, you can install an even bigger one, provided you've got a changeover switch. When you click it over, you're now disconnected from the grid and your stuff is supplying your
No, it would
house
never be connected to
power.
the grid. It would be completely independent in the suburbs.
Correct.
Okay.
Or wherever you like.
My only question is, would the Tesla installer, would they agree to unencumber the Powerwall once you've demonstrated to them that it's off grid? Which hopefully they would. And they'd say, well, it comes standard at full rate.
All right.
There are a few installers that will, that have done it before.
Yep. So that's a if, well, let's face it, if you do a lot of kilometers in your car could be your house's biggest load on average, and therefore could be one of its biggest consumers of solar energy. And if you've got lots of roof space to put solar panels, but Western Power says you can't do any more. Actually, I think you can fit more panels, you just can't fit bigger inverters. Actually, is there a conflict with the STCs on existing old panels that have got STCs?
We'll save this for another night then. That was a simple yes, it can be done. Get professional advice.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's there's a 0.7 DC to AC ratio. Otherwise, you don't get STCs. So
No, but you don't get STCs now anyway. Isn't that all finished? That requirement's all gone now, isn't it? With new panels.
There's still a limit. You can't go. Yep, the 0.7 that Pete's talking about is still current. Yeah.
In which case, you could get a Powerwall. You could do it absolutely. But then a big question then is the $13,000 for a Powerwall plus its own panels plus installation? Are you ever going to capture that much energy to put into your car that you drive enough to use that? And if it's what you're trying to do is a technology demonstration, just to stick it to Synergy or / Western Power with your own money that you've got a surplus of, then go for it. But if it's on pure economic grounds, it's just not.
No, I think I did the maths. It would pay for itself in 23 years. 23.7 years.
Mine, when I did the maths on mine, it paid for itself in 10 or less than 10. And the power price has gone up since then, so it'll be less than that.
Yeah, but this was purely charging 10 kilowatts of a car per day and on 50% of the days in Perth, because it won't get 10 kilowatts on all days.
Yeah, I do more Ks than you. But maybe contact me after, James, and I can fill you in. Yeah.
And as well, we're thinking of moving in 5 years. This way we could unbolt it and take it with us.
Well, I've got a perfectly good mobile technology demonstrator that's got 30 kilowatt hours of battery storage.
I've got a place you can park it.
15 kilowatts. Let's go.
I'm happy to long-term store that for free if you want. And to maintain and keep it working so that the technology doesn't degrade.
And throw in Starlink.
Don't say that twice, James, because I've got
undercover long-term storage, secure.
Because my caravan is taking up some valuable space at work.
Oh, there you go.
I'll
even put it on PlugShare and let other people use it. Could it be the first caravan on PlugShare?
I thought about doing that thought about doing that on our lap when we did our first lap. I was well, my first lap, my only lap. I was contemplating putting the caravan on PlugShare and then moving the pin each day. Unfortunately, PlugShare wouldn't let me do that, so I couldn't do it.
I'll be more than happy to
yes,
have
yeah.
your caravan securely housed here on PlugShare. We're in Joondalup, so there's no public charges, so it'll be an asset to the community. And I'll put on my Wi-Fi so that you can monitor it.
You just keep your eyes off of Harold's caravan because I've got my eyes on it.
Oh, you can come and borrow it any time.
Oh no. I think we really do have to go before I yeah. Anyway.
Harold, I have a quick one.
Oh yes. Yes, Norm.
About the Harland 3 and the cruise control. Yes, the one touch and the two touch is the same as the old model, but it just doesn't have that option to press and hold to change to the new speed limit.
Yep. Okay. So yeah. Thanks, Norm. Yeah, that's as I recalled it faintly from Russell Bell. Yeah, that's right. Which is unfortunate. Real shame. You know, Tesla. Come on, Tesla. It makes sense that if you do a long pull down on the stalk, that it automatically updates the speed. If you do a long press on the autopilot button, then of course that should do the same function. I mean, it just makes sense. It's
exactly
crazy that it's not that way. So no, couldn't agree more. So come on, Elon. We know you're watching from Mar-a-Lago. In fact, it's daytime in Mar-a-Lago. You probably just had breakfast. So chop chop. Let's get it done.
Thank you.
Thanks, Norm. All right, Pete. How would you take out this show? Awesome show. As if
before we do that, Pete, Harold, please drive safe.
Yes.
Oh yeah, always. Hashtag drive safe. I'll probably be sleeping in until 4, so it'll be luxurious.
Excellent.
Unless I wake up at 2:30, you know, like I usually sleep like a baby. Wake up every few hours screaming, but we'll see how we go. So, Pete, how would you take out this awesome show as if we didn't already know?
As always, stay safe, stay sustainable, have a good drive, Harold, and stay ahead of the curve.
And the best way to do that is buy a Tesla, get up early, go for a long drive, and ask us anything about accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy. Have a wonderful week, everybody, and a great weekend, obviously. And we really do look forward to seeing you on next week's episode of Ask Us Anything. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Yes.